They came for the land they stole from us. They even fought bloody fists flying at my mother's funeral. But what they didn't know, my grandparents planned it all. And 25 years later, their revenge is still playing out. If you've ever dreamed of watching greedy family members get exactly what they deserve, hit that like button, subscribe, and get ready. This is one of the most twisted, slow burning family revenge stories you'll ever hear, where the sweetest justice took decades to unfold. Let me take you back to where it all began: a rural village, tribal land, and one very large, very dysfunctional family. My grandparents had 9 kids. Yes, 9. But only one of them, my mom, actually made something of herself. She was the third oldest, but unlike the rest, she worked hard, built a life, and never relied on anyone. The others, greedy, lazy, always scheming, always with their hands out. Especially Thomas, my oldest cousin, who dragged his own mother down with him through gambling, womanizing, and plain old stupidity. He even had the audacity to comment on the cost of my mom's casket and got a face full of coins from me for it. Let me introduce you to the main players: Thomas, oldest cousin, greedy, entitled, and delusional; Jake, son of uncle number 1, manipulative and sly; Frank, son of uncle number 2, opportunistic and blunt; Colin, a violent pastor with a holy title but hellish temper. And then there's my dad: quiet, respectful, underestimated. But here's where the story gets juicy. My grandfather wasn't just any elder, he was a bishop and landowner. He'd even built a church in our rural hometown. In tribal areas, chiefs hold authority over land, not courts. So, when my grandfather wrote his will, he took no chances. He personally went to the chief with my grandmother, my mom, and my dad. In front of everyone, he told the chief, "When I pass, all my land and the church go to my wife." Then my grandmother, like a chess master ready to checkmate, pulled out her will and said, "And when I'm gone, everything goes to my daughter, my only trustworthy child." The chief agreed. Witnesses stood by. Done deal. The documents were locked away, and with that, they ensured the land would never end up in the hands of the vultures they'd raised. My grandfather died in 1997. There were grumblings, sure, but everyone played nice. For a while. The land went to my grandmother as planned. Then in 2009, my grandmother passed, and guess what turned up missing? Her will. Shocker, right? The family descended like a swarm of locusts. They raided her home, stripped it bare, and started foaming at the mouth over who would get the land and church. Here's the twist: there were no official title deeds, just the chief's memory. And when they went to him, full of entitlement and arrogance, the chief said simply, "The land belongs to my mom. That's what your father wanted. That's what your mother confirmed." They were stunned, furious. But they couldn't argue. They tried pressuring my mom, intimidating her, but she stayed strong, even though she lived 700 kilometers away and didn't care much for the land itself. She didn't want to sell it either, not because of greed, but because her parents and brother were buried there. Then in 2010, my mom passed away unexpectedly. And at her funeral, the place where you'd expect grief and mourning, a fight broke out. A real, violent, screaming match in front of mourners and caskets. Why? They all thought now was their time to claim the land. Thomas screamed that as the eldest son of the eldest aunt, it was his birthright. Jake argued his dad was the eldest son, so it should go to him. Frank shouted that no one liked Jake's dad, so it should go to his family. And Colin, oh, holy Colin, claimed as a pastor he was destined to inherit the church. Fists flew, blood spilled, stitches followed. But the funniest part? They were fighting over something they didn't even own. Because when my mom passed, my dad legally inherited everything she had, including the land and the church, and none of them had the slightest clue. We only found out what they were really fighting about after the funeral. My dad and I laughed so hard we cried. My dad didn't tell them the truth, yet. He waited for years. While they kept scheming, fighting, trying to outmaneuver each other, my dad let them burn themselves out. The chaos was unreal. Every few years, someone would start a new fight. Every cousin tried to stake a claim. At one point, they even tried roping in lawyers. But tribal law doesn't care for paper pushers. Eventually, my dad got bored of the circus. He called a few of them, Thomas, Jake, and Frank, and said, "You want the land? Fine. I'll give it to you three to divide as you see fit." But even that didn't help. They couldn't stop fighting. Colin, of course, was left out, because involving him would have started World War III. So guess what? They still couldn't agree. They just kept bickering until some of them literally died. Thomas? Dead. Colin? Dead. Uncle number 1 and Uncle number 2? Also dead. Jake? Bitter and burned out. Frank? Doesn't care anymore. My dad? Still owns the land? Calm. Laughing. A few weeks ago, Sally, daughter of aunt number 2 and one of the few decent family members, called my dad. Apparently, Colin's widow was asking if she should talk to your dad about the church. My dad just laughed and said, "Tell them to wait for me to die." Then he turned to me and said something I'll never forget. "I want to see them take you on. I dare them." And honestly, I'd love to see them try. When someone once asked my grandmother why she gave everything to just one daughter, her answer was simple. "Have you seen the rest of my children? I'm giving it to the one person who won't kill me in my sleep for it." That's how a quiet woman, who saw through her children's souls, set off a slow-burning revenge that's lasted 25 years. She didn't need violence. She didn't need drama. She just needed a signature and patience. So here we are, 25 years after my grandfather died, 15 years after my mom passed, 4 family members dead, the rest still squabbling, and the land, the church, still right where my grandparents wanted it to be. No matter what the others tried, their greed destroyed them from the inside out. All my grandparents had to do was trust the only person who never asked for a thing. Justice doesn't always come in a courtroom. Sometimes it comes in silence, in patience, in waiting for people to destroy themselves with their own greed. My grandparents played the long game, and they won. If this story gave you chills, hit that like button and drop a comment. What's the most satisfying long-term revenge you've ever witnessed? And don't forget to subscribe for more jaw-dropping Reddit revenge stories every week.